country. I understand that to be he just went out of his bounds, went outside of what the Supreme Court really would allow. But would you just comment on marriage between a man and a woman, your stance on it, and what can be done at a local level to preserve it?
All right, it's a very interesting question and a very modern one, very important to today's problems. What about the Defense of Marriage Act? I was a supporter of that particular bill. Why did we do the DOMA, or the Defense of Marriage Act? We did it because the Constitution said that if one state passes a law, the other states have to give full faith and credit to it. And we didn't want those of us who do not believe, who do believe that marriage should be between a man and a woman. We basically felt that we had to protect it with DOMA, so that states that did not choose to allow gay marriage would not have to be followed by other states that did not want to, did not want to follow that. The President now, this week, announced, mainly through his Justice Department leadership, that they are no longer going to defend this congressional law. Now, the Justice Department is in existence, in part, to defend laws passed by Congress, even if they don't agree with them. And they don't agree with the Defense of Marriage Act. Now, that's really amazing that they said, well, if Congress wants to argue for its law, they ought to hire their own attorneys to take this case to take the argument to the Supreme Court. Now, there are a lot more implications than that involved here. The big implication, of course, is this business of full faith and credit that must be given to the laws of other states. If that is so, and all of the other states who don't want DOMA to be overruled have to do that, you've got a lot of people who would have to comply with something they fervently disbelieve in. And that's why DOMA was passed to begin with. Now, I don't believe we should discriminate against anybody. And frankly, I am against changing the nature of marriage. I really believe marriage ought to be between a man and a woman. On the other hand, what do you do about people who are gay, who love each other, and who might not be able to go into an intensive care unit to be with their companion or their partner? That's not right. Or might not qualify for certain estate rights. That's not right. Or might not qualify under certain circumstances for survivor's insurance, or any number of other legal mechanisms that aren't currently covered. Well, I think most thinking people who believe that marriage should be between a man and woman are not against having some sort of an accommodation, like civil unions. But we don't. I think if we start playing around with what marriage is, I think we all run into a lot of difficulty. And we need to understand that maybe more than most because of our former practice of plural marriage. Not said. But I have great empathy. The people should not be mistreated. On the other hand, moral principles ought to be followed, in my opinion. And marriage is one of the highest moral principles. And, we in Utah believe very strongly in eternal marriage, a lot of us. And that it's for the purpose of raising children. But that doesn't mean that we should be prejudiced against people who, for no fault of their own, happen to turn out to be different from us.
Could I just follow up? I agree with that there needs to be civil discourse and two people with completely opposing views can have respect and love each other. I'm concerned with what the implications have on putting two different kinds of marriage on an equal plane and what that has the potential to do as far as what's allowed in schools and how that would affect religious freedom in our country. That's my main concern.
Well, religious freedom is definitely part of it. I haven't mentioned that, but most religions in this country believe that marriage should be between a man and women. That's why only 5 states, I think there are only 5 states that have legislated that you can have marriages other than just a man and a woman. There are many people who are worried that if you sanction a gay marriage, you're going to have to sanction plural marriage, you're going to have to sanction a whole bunch of other things as well. And these are all very important philosophical and sociological questions. I don't know where it's going to wind up. All I can say is that that's my viewpoint. It's not a viewpoint of prejudice, it's a viewpoint of practicality, and I think it's a religious viewpoint as well in my case, and that's just the way it is. Now, who knows how this will all sift out or sift out, but there's a lot of angst about it and a lot of irritation about it in the country right now, both ways. And I hate to see that. I think you've got the questions, but can I interrupt with her?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the implication of Obama saying he won't defend it? What's that defense?
What's the implication of Obama saying he won't defend it?
What you said.
Well, it's a terrible implication because if the President of the United States is unwilling to support congressional enactments in his own Justice Department, that flies in the face of what the Justice Department is supposed to do. Now, the Justice Department is taking the position that DOMA is unconstitutional, but DOMA has been pronounced constitutional. So, it's a very weird position to take. And it flies in the face of what President should do and what Justice Department should do. The Justice Department is not the arm of the President. It's the arm of the people. And see, that's where I have a lot of difficulty with the liberal point of view. They basically believe the federal government should determine everything and not the people. The Constitution is the people's document, not the federal government's document. And you may disagree, but I think I can make a pretty good case of that. Okay, you want to read that?
Our next question is from the Utah Statesman, from Landon Hemsley.
Okay.
I'm actually with Utah Public Radio, thank you. Recent opinion polls have yourself and Representative Jason Chaffetz more or less in equal grounds in terms of re-election in 2012. I was wondering if you would comment on that or any concerns you have of being voted out of office.
Recent polls seem to say that Jason Chaffetz and I are equal. Great, that's good for him. The fact of the matter is that Dan Jones is the best pollster in Utah, and he thinks otherwise. All I can say is, look, every time I've come up for re-election, I've always been down. Because Utahns tend to say, let's throw all the bums out, you know, without thinking of what some of them aren't bums might be able to do. For instance, one reason I'm running again, I've been elected 6 times to the United States Senate. I'm the longest serving senator in the United States Senate. Some people say that seniority doesn't mean anything. Yeah? Tell that to the people who are on Captain Sullenberger's plane that landed in the Hudson River. They'd all be dead if it wasn't for experience. And it does make a difference. For instance, I just took over as ranking member of the Senate Finance Committee, a powerful committee in Congress. And in 2013, I believe the Republicans will take control of the Senate, and I'll be the chairman of that committee. Now that's where all of your future is. If you want some rookie to do it, you're right. But if it were me, I'd want somebody who knows what he's doing, who's been around a long time, and who really is dedicated to solving the problems of Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. Just to mention 3 of the major entitlement programs. Because if we don't solve those, your future is going to be very much diminished. I intend to solve those. I intend, in one way or the other, get those so that they work for you, as well as without hurting those who are currently on Social Security or Medicaid and Medicare. And there are ways of doing that that would be very cost-saving ways that would really help us. Now, anybody who wants to can run against me. That's their right. And all I can say is this, I intend to win. and I wouldn't do it if I didn't, so that's no big statement. The fact is, I think when people look at what I've done, what I can do, and how hard I work, nobody outworks me, I think they're going to say, hey, that experience is very important for Utah and the nation as well. But there are going to be people who disagree with that statement, but I can't make excuses for idiots, you know. I should have got at least a little laughter. Who's that?
Yeah. Sydney Van Dyke, and she has a question on Egypt and the Middle East.
Oh, I'm right here.
Yes,
this is, well, completely off what we've all been talking about for the past little while. But, you know, it's been in the news a lot. All the unrest in Egypt and Libya. Actually, there's even protests in Iran. Where does the United States, how will we be affected by that? Like, from your perspective, seeing the foreign policy, all the stuff that's going on in Washington, how is that going to affect us? I'm sure oil, but well, what else? Like, a lot of the people that are rising to power in Libya are actually apparently pro-Iran, like to a certain extent, or some of the governments that were toppling were anti-Iran just a little bit. So how is that going to affect us?
Well, it affects us greatly. Let me give an illustration. We are the strongest supporters of Israel. We're also the strongest supporters up to now of Egypt. Mubarak, in controlling Egypt, actually was the only state in the Middle East that supported the relationship with Israel and freedom of Israel. That was a very important relationship, regardless of the fact that he was, you know, what some people call a dictator all these years. But at least he was a dictator who worked with us and helped to stabilize the Middle East. Now, I have to say that King Hussein of Jordan is very, very good himself, and so are a number of smaller Arab states. The Saudis work with us quite thoroughly. We all know that if that goes out of control, it's not only going to hurt all of the world oil supply, which will increase the cost of gas at the pump dramatically. It's already gone up a considerable amount. But it could lead to, if we have an Iran-type situation, to antagonism towards the rest of the world that does not particularly subscribe to Islam. So these are very important issues. Let's understand something. If this administration had gotten in with the people who are rising up in Egypt and supported them, because it's pretty clear that Mubarak had to leave, that would have been a signal to the rest of the Shiite world that the United States is reasonable. I think it would put a real dent in the Shiite control of Iran. These are very important considerations. Now you got Tunisia, now you have Libya. I think the same thing, where it really would make a difference is if we supported the Shiites in Libya against Gaddafi, who has been a totalitarian dictator of some repute and who really is not a good person, at least in my eyes and most people's eyes. So these are very important issues. We could talk about them all day, but that's just a little bit about why this is so important. If the whole Middle East becomes destabilized and that little nation called Israel, right in the center of the only really solid democracy in the whole area, it starts to get attacked because Hamas and the other radical groups are going to go after them, and we have an obligation to support and make sure that Israel is not trampled. And it's a good obligation. There are many reasons for that, but let me leave it at that. I'm going to try to stay within the 2 minutes on some of these. So I take her back there, and then we'll go to... Yes, ma'am.
Do you believe that the health insurance needed reform before President Obama?
Did y'all hear that? Well, I believe that health insurance needed reform before President Obama. It certainly needed a lot of work. And you're talking to a senator who's done an awful lot in the field of health care. Rahm Emanuel invited me down to the White House 3 days after the inauguration. And that was Rahm Emanuel, Barry Summers, who's the great economic guru who headed Harvard at one time and now back at Harvard. Then Joe Biden came in, who's an old friend for a long time, we care for each other. Then the president came in, and a number of other cabinet officials, all chat with this poor little senator from Utah. And I have to say, we chatted for about 45 minutes, and then finally President Obama said, Orrin, I want to take you back to the Oval Office, you and Joe. I said, okay. Now, those are true words. I do show respect to the president, whoever he or she may be, and to the vice president as well, and especially people I like. I like Rahm Emanuel. Rahm's a tough guy. Just got elected mayor of Chicago, a tough city, in real trouble. So we went back and chatted, but while I was leaving the room, Rahm grabbed my arm and pulled me back and he said, can we do health care? Now, I'd had a lot to do with health care in the country up to that point. I said, yeah. He said, how? Now, Kennedy was sick.